Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Billy Bob on the West Coast, and it's morning for me. It's 9 a.m. I've got my regular co-host, Ian Cummer, streaming live from his dacha in Crimea. It's 7 p.m. in Crimea at the moment, right, Ian?
Yeah, yes, 7 p.m., 7 p.m.
7 p.m. And so, we got a really exciting show today, a lot of important discussions. I'm not sure if we've had a show as important as this program. I mean, in my opinion, the title we picked is Trump going to nuke Iran? And, most of you who are not living under a rock are aware of the deteriorating situation with Iran and the escalatory rhetoric from Trump himself. And so this morning was just the most unhinged rant from Donald J. Trump. So he wrote, on Telegram, on his own media, Truth Social, and I think he tweeted as well. He says, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran." So, I mean, what exactly is he talking about? What does he mean? From my perspective, as I have been, putting forth a narrative, an explanatory narrative about what's going on and why for years now, it really just seems like this narrative is turning into reality, right? You can never predict with complete certainty what's going to happen, but if you understand, well, I mean, I hate to even just jump right into my long-winded analysis.
Well, we have introductory. We have some. I want to start. Sometimes we forget. I want to acknowledge our commenters as they come in. Maybe we should do that before the monologue. Yes. We got Skoidat, who we both have talked to frequently, and is a reader of Billy Bob's book, which he just released. And Skoidat is one of the buyers of that book. So it's very cool. We got Ramisha. We got Ramisha here. Hello, Ramisha. And we got Daryl.
Oops.
Yeah, we got Daryl.
Resident Nazi racist. I'm just kidding, Daryl. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
So good audience tonight. Good audience. Good starting audience. So Billy Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I appreciate all the viewers and all the comments and all the interest, the engagement, the interaction. My whole point here, my whole purpose here is to, explain as I understand things, the truth as I understand things, and explain, try and get people to embrace what I think is the reality of our situation. And, I think in the United States, in the West especially, there's an overt effort by the ruling establishment, by the ruling oligarchy, to kind of just disenfranchise the masses of people from what is going on. Because, if they can confuse everyone, they can really disenfranchise us and render us uninfluential, unable to do anything about what they want to do. So they have a vested interest in making us all stupid, confused, ignorant, and at each other's throats. That benefits them. And so what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish is just, educate, and it sounds pretentious. It sounds conceited and all those words that, who the fuck am I to educate people? But, it just seems so incredibly obvious, exactly what is happening. And so I can't help but being compelled to, yell at the top of my lungs what I think is happening. And what I think is happening is, you have a Western oligarchy that is the ruling class in the West and has been the ruling class ever since they managed to upend the feudal system. They've implemented this capitalist system of oligarchy. And that system is being threatened primarily by the rise of China, right? So the Western oligarchs, their global hegemony is being displaced by a rising China. And this is what is motivating and animating all of their actions and behaviors. And so they have a strategy, they have a plan to deal with China. And even before Trump won the election, I was very clear, and I'm going to let me throw it up on the let me present it. Let me try and present it. So I was just very clear, even before the election about my predictions and what I think is happening. And these things are just really playing out in real time. And of course, with Trump's tweet this morning, it could very well be initiating this evening, a huge escalation in things that will crash the global economy and, get us moving off into the direction I've been, telling people. So I'm trying to share my screen and it's taken a sec. Okay, here we go. So let's see. I don't see my screen being shared. What just happened?
It's thinking about it. It just took a minute.
And
so
so here's the basis. So when I'm not just predicting, right? My predictions are based on a certain framework, a certain analysis, a certain understanding of the way things are. And if you have this framework correct, if you have a correct understanding of, how, what the powers are and why things are the way they are, then you can predict what their, logical objectives are and what strategies they might pursue to achieve those objectives. I mean, it's pretty simple. So the most important assumption that influences these predictions is the big picture geopolitical situation where Western global hegemony perceives itself to be under threat from China's rapidly growing economic power. What follows from this assumption is a further assumption that rather than resign itself to an inevitable multipolar world where China becomes too big and too powerful to ever hope to contain, the United States and their Western vassals will implement a plan of containment against China, and they will do so sooner rather than later. So again, I wrote this in October 31st, 2024. So what can the U.S. do to contain China? Is it possible for the U.S. to contain China without causing great harm to the global economy and plunging humanity into a period of tremendous depression and upheaval? Of course not. China is the single biggest manufacturing superpower on the planet. They are the number one trading partner for over 120 countries. If China is to be contained, the global economy must suffer. There is no other way for the West to pursue and achieve their objective of Chinese containment without plunging the world into global economic catastrophe. So sooner rather than later, and the global economy will necessarily suffer if China is to be contained, are the two primary assumptions which provide the foundation for the rest of this analysis. Am I reading too fast, Ian? It's tough because pace.
It's a good pace.
I can't see the screen. I can't see myself. I'm just reading. So let me go back to, okay. So
well,
I think the Western
I was going to say, I think most of our viewers are not actually viewing, they're listening. So I think if it's easier for you, you could just unshare the screen and read it in big letters, if that's easier for you.
To unshare the screen?
What I was saying is if it's too small from the way it's sharing, why don't you just unshare? Because I don't think most people
I'm
are reading along.
I'm on the page. So I have big letters.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Let's see. So I think the Western ruling establishment has coalesced around a strategy to initiate the necessary global economic turmoil by launching an attack on Iran. Iran will respond to this attack by blocking the Strait of Hormuz and disrupting global energy supplies, 28% of which transit the strait. I think the U.S. wants this to happen and will use it as the justification for a large-scale attack on Iran, perhaps involving nuclear weapons. I think this escalation with Iran could happen very soon, and I believe that the ruling establishment consensus would like to have Trump as president to manage this strategy. So keep in mind, this is before the election, and I'm looking at things through what I believe is the proper framework of class analysis, and I describe myself as using the Marxist dialectical method to understand reality. And this is the result of my analysis, is that, and I was very clear, right? I mean, I'll repeat that and then I'll continue. So again, I think the Western ruling establishment has coalesced around a strategy to initiate the necessary global economic turmoil by launching an attack on Iran. Iran will respond to this attack by blocking the Straits of Hormuz and disrupting global energy supply, 20% of which transit the Strait. I think the U.S. wants this to happen and will use it as the justification for a large-scale attack on Iran, perhaps involving nuclear weapons. And so again, I think that this prediction made 2 years ago could very well come true tonight if we are to trust Trump and his rhetoric. It's possible he could chicken out. It's possible this gets delayed again by weeks or months. I don't think so. I'm thinking tonight is the night. There's no reason to think that this is not going to happen. But anyway, let me continue. I think this escalation with Iran could happen very soon. I believe the ruling establishment consensus would like to have Trump as president to manage the strategy. I think the establishment has decided on Trump because they can blame him personally for everything that goes wrong and for all the economic fallout which will necessarily result. They will use both carrots and sticks to get Trump to protect Israel, and the Zionist entity will seize on the opportunity to engage in even more terrorism, ethnic cleansing, land theft in order to expand their borders throughout Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. We don't see Syria, well, we do see Syria. We don't see Jordan and Egypt yet. But believe me, like if there's this global conflagration, I mean, the Zionist entity will, to the best of its ability. We see what's going on in Lebanon. We saw Gaza. So again, this was 2 years ago. This is what's going on. So meanwhile, Trump may attempt to bribe Russia to stand down and allow Iran to be destroyed by promising Russia a generous peace with Ukraine and end to the Western sanctions and a comprehensive peace plan that would be contingent on Russia not siding with China. If Russia refuses to play ball and continues to side with Iran and China instead of cutting a deal with the West will obviously widen the war against Russia. And that's what's going on. The West is widening the war against Russia. They are escalating their attacks on Russian energy production, which is all part and parcel of monopolizing global energy, energy resources, and to weaponize that monopoly of global energy resources against China, which of course is the plan. What seems clear, though, is that Iran, Russia, and China prefer cooperation to confrontation, and it is the U.S. alone that is hell-bent on provoking confrontation. And I shouldn't say the U.S. It's the Western transnational oligarchy that controls the United States and the Western states who are using these states, weaponizing these states, in furtherance of their class interests, their class objectives, and their class objectives have nothing to do with the national interests of the United States, the national interests of Europe, or the people, the working class that comprises the majority in the West. I'm absolutely certain, though, that the West can't win a war against Iran. I am equally certain that Russia would never cut a deal with the West and sell out Iran or China. And there's no chance in hell that an attempted economic embargo against China would ever work to successfully contain China. The future is bright for those countries under attack from Western imperialism. Western imperialism is in terminal decline. Unfortunately, though, the West gets to decide how their collapse will play out and how many people are hurt in the process. It doesn't seem likely that they will make good decisions, in part because the decision makers themselves will not have to suffer from the consequences of their actions. So obviously, we're at the beginning stages of my analysis, and it is impossible to have any certainty how Western decline actually plays out. But there can be no doubt regarding the correctness of the framework and the identification of the primary antagonist. So that's about it. And again, let me stop sharing. I just think that today, with the rhetoric from Trump yesterday in Trump's live briefing and his press conference, and then his tweet this morning about the end of a civilization, I think that we're just going to see what I have predicted. And again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn and pretend I'm some kind of a prophet. In fact, I want to do the opposite. I want to say, using the right framework, everybody should fucking understand what the fuck is going on. Like this isn't fucking rocket science, and the problem is everybody is indoctrinated into the cult of liberalism. Their minds have been indoctrinated into liberal thinking where they think in terms of nation states. They have no understanding of class, oppositional class interests, and class struggle. And because of that, they have no fucking clue what's going on. And they end up in thinking that, what is really important is the struggle between different powers within the ruling class establishment, right? Like politics consists entirely of Democrats versus Republicans, and we got to just choose sides and pick a side of the ruling oligarchy that we want to support. No, real politics is opposing the oligarchy, recognizing that they both the Democrats and Republicans are part and parcel of the oligarchic ruling class, and this is how they manage, this is how they own and control our country, and to take our country back by, overthrowing oligarch rule and replacing it with a rule, a party that actually benefits the interests of the people. So that's the analysis that, can best make sense of why the Western oligarchy is dragging humanity, dragging the planet, dragging our nation into this global economic collapse. And again, what's going to happen if Trump widens the war, escalates like he's promising to do against Iran, destroys Iran's energy production capacity? Iran is going to retaliate. And okay, so let me read that. Let me read what Iran said they would do in response to Trump's demands, right? Because this is important. So this is what Iran says they're going to do in response to Trump's threats. This is super important. I'm going to share screen. Okay, I'm not going to share the screen. I'm just going to read it.
There you go.
So Iran has announced that it will destroy the entire energy infrastructure of Israel and all other countries that host U.S. bases in the region. And it's a quote. Here's the quote from Iran. From now on, certain considerations regarding good neighborliness and self-restraint have ended. We will deal with the infrastructure of the United States and its partners in the Persian Gulf in such a way that they will be deprived of the region's oil and gas for years. So the Western imperialists are going to be deprived of the region's oil and gas for years to come. So this is what I mean by Trump will initiate the collapse of the global economy. And again, I predicted 2 years ago that this is exactly what the West wants. Why does the West want this? Because they are targeting China. They are going to do their very best, given a short window of opportunity where China does not have yet domestic energy. So right now, China is reliant on energy imports. Very soon, in about 5 years, they'll be completely unreliant on foreign energy. They'll be self-sufficient. They'll be energy self-sufficient in a few years. And this is why, they have to work fast and quickly to quote unquote contain China. So all of this is going as planned. Of course, Iran or the United States, Donald Trump, the Western Empire has hoped that they would be able to just win, just overthrow Iran, put in a puppet government, control their oil, and deny it to China. That was their best, their best hope, their biggest hope. But they were prepared. If that didn't play out, they're prepared to just completely destroy all of the energy manufacturing capacity of West Asia. So, and that's what they're going to have to do, because of course, Iran is not going to surrender. Iran is not going to just give up and hand all their resources and sovereignty over to Donald Trump, the Western oligarchs. That's just not going to happen. So necessarily, when Trump initiates, and he's already done it, right? Like there's already reports of bridges and Iranian energy production being hit. And so to the extent that ramps up, to the extent that Iran responds and starts doing that to the Gulf, eventually the entirety of the West Asian energy production capacity will be destroyed, and that will trigger a global economic catastrophe with tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of unnecessary deaths. Like that's what we're staring at. That's what's going to be initiated. And I shouldn't even fucking laugh when I say that, but I hear myself, and I know it sounds bizarre. I've been on this planet for 50 years. I've never seen anything like this. I've never been in a position like this. This is all new territory, but I think I want people to understand the gravity of what the fuck is going on, and I think it's important. Ian, I have made your eyes glaze over, and you probably have thoughts.
No, it's a good synopsis, though. I don't know, now it's my turn. Now my brain hiccups, but I'm sorry. No, it's just, but it's a lot to take in. I mean, when that, I remember on that first day, and I guess it was March 1st. Is that, I guess, because I'm a little bit ahead of you in time zone. I'm actually more or less the same time zone as Iran. So it's basically it was early morning for us, so we woke up and Trump had bombed Iran. And then within a couple hours of the war starting, getting those first reports that Trump had attacked Iran. Then there was the girls' school. There was the women's. I want to say it was a volleyball team. It was a volleyball team that was.
Another war crime.
Yeah, it was several. So it was very shocking, and I do want to go back to this comment someone had made here. I think it was Ramisha. Yes, so Ramisha made a comment. The best alternative for Donald, the best alternative besides Donald or Biden. I would say I don't know. I mean, and the reality is that I think this is, it's unfortunate, but this is the president that the USA deserves. This is he is the democratically elected president, and he is representing. It's very unfortunate, but he is representing the American people here, because I see we see the polls where the majority of Americans are against it, but there's no pushback at all. No one's elected representatives is really speaking out, and there's no outcry. There's no pushback. I mean, there was literally more pushback against ICE than there is against this, right? Because I don't want to get into let me finish. So I don't want to get into an immigration debate, but just regardless of what you think of that topic, there was a lot of pushback against that. People were actually fighting with the ICE cops. They were blocking the convoys. They were disrupting it. But no one does that. And I even posted about this, and a bunch of people got mad at me on Facebook when I said this. It's like, where is all this enthusiasm for Iran? I mean, you can't. It's not reasonable to expect the average person to book a plane ticket, to the Middle East or whatever, but you can do that sort of disruptive grassroots stuff in the USA, which has real world effects. But I don't see that. I look around, it's like, wait. Well, I don't mean literally look around because I'm not in the USA anymore, but I don't see that. The No Kings, the alleged 8 million protesters at No Kings, very explicitly did not mention Iran or Palestine or the war or anything. This is
so to me, again, that is evidence, that is proof, that is the confirmation of what I'm saying, that they want this to happen. They want what Trump is doing. They want to have it, because I promise, Ian, the ruling establishment, if a president is doing something against their interests and against their will, they have means to stop the president. Like, think of JFK. He wanted peaceful coexistence with the Soviet Union. And I think that's why he, ended up getting lead poisoning. All of the activists, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, like, they know how to deal with people who oppose their interests, and they can do it very effectively. And so the fact that you don't see any pushback to what Trump is doing, that he's threatening to use nuclear weapons, and he's not being immediately impeached or put in handcuffs and frog marched to fucking Leavenworth or wherever the fuck, means they want this to happen. They want him to do it. He is doing this for them, and they don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be associated with it, which is why Donald Trump is such a great figurehead right now from their perspective, because everything he does in their interests, they can distance themselves from after the fact, and then they'll put the Democrats in power, and then they're going to pursue the exact same agenda once he's gone. But they're going to get him to do all these fucking evil things, nuclear weapons against, killing millions of people. And that is going to be what they want to have happen. And then they're going to condone him. A very similar thing happened with fucking Hitler in World War II. They supported him. They built him up. They unleashed him. And then they tried to distance themselves. I mean, it's a very stark parallel, So I know, technically we were at war with the Nazis, but look, we didn't really fight the Nazis. It was the Soviets that defeated, well over 80% of all the Nazi war machine. So, I mean, on paper, we opposed them, and it worked out for us. Like, we played that good. Like, I shouldn't say the Western oligarchy played World War II really good, because at the end of it, the United States was, accounted for 50% of the global economy. They were able to create a world order that we have, the world order that has existed since then. The United States dollar is the world reserve currency. So, this is kind of, it's very similar. It's a similar theme. We see it happening now. And so the question is, to what extent is Trump going to follow through on his promise to try and end Iran as a civilization? And the topic of our show today is Trump going to nuke Iran? And I think that is a good question. I think it is definitely within the realm of possibility. And again, if the ruling Western establishment did not want that to happen, they would just fucking stop it. They would stop it in a fucking heartbeat. And the fact that they don't means that they're all for it, just like they could have stopped Hitler if they wanted to. Stalin was begging, hey, let's have an anti-fascist alliance. And they said, absolutely not, motherfucker. We're going to unleash Hitler on your ass. And then we know what happened. But so it's very similar, very similar. We're on the precipice of World War III. We are on the precipice of a global economic collapse. We're on the precipice of catastrophic war crimes, committed not by Donald Trump. Don't buy that lie. This is going to be something that the entirety of the ruling establishment wants. And, don't believe that they're not fucking 100% on board. I mean, that's my message.
Right. So, yeah, I mostly agree, though. I want to get to the main point of the nukes, but I do want to mention that I don't think it's directed against China. It's Israel. Because it does. Because whichever way we look at Greater Israel or defeating Iran, it's not really. It doesn't really pertain to China. In fact, I actually kind of agree with another comment here. Daryl's comments. The Western oligarchy gutted American manufacturing, is now upset everything's made with Chinese hands. Helping not to understand.
Yeah, can I?
That's a joke, guys, by the way.
But I have a lot to say about that because it's important. It's a good question.
I don't think. Well, the thing is that's China. Because yes, the figure people throw around a lot is like, 80% of Iran's oil goes to China, which is true. But just because it's a big number for Iran doesn't mean it's a big figure for China. It's something like 5% of China's oil. And part of the reason why it's so much is because Iran is sanctioned. If it was just a normal quote unquote free market economy, like they always talk about, it wouldn't be 80% because Iran would have other buyers. The reason it's not even close to Iran's full capacity. If they were a normal unsanctioned country, I'm sure they could export a lot more than they actually are, but they have very limited customers, so the majority of it goes to them. And that doesn't mean it's China is important to China. And the other thing we need to consider here is that, let's look at your scenario that, all infrastructure for oil extraction is obliterated in the Middle East. Who does that change? So the USA could recover. It's sort of a net exporter. It's sort of a net exporter. It's more complicated than that, but it's a topic for a different discussion. But the USA could manage probably without, not getting into the petrodollar thing, but just looking at oil exports and imports, the USA could probably manage for that. The people who could not manage, who would be in big trouble, would be Europe. Now, if Europe is after being completely severed, for semi-permanently from Middle Eastern oil, well, what are they going to do? The USA will not be able to export that quantity of oil to them, so they can't turn to the USA. They're going to have to turn. They're just not. They're either going to collapse or turn to Russia. And Russia will become the indispensable oil supplier in the world if the Middle East gets wiped off the map, so to speak. So I don't see this benefiting the anti-China crusade. I don't see this benefiting the anti-Russia crusade. It does help Israel, does help the Zionist lobby. It does help the concept of making Israel a global power. If Iran is dismembered, that leaves Israel as the main regional power and does make them a global power, whether or not the USA supports them any longer. It would make Israel a global power. So that makes sense, but it doesn't help. I don't see the China angle in that.
Okay. So yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot. There's two primary things. So there's number one, there's what I think is the motivation is, what I think that they want the end goal to be. And then there is what I think the end goal will actually be. Now, it sounds like what you're saying is, I'm not sure if you're addressing, your idea of what you think they're after, or if you're addressing what you think they're going to achieve. So it's two different things, right? So I'm saying they want to achieve this because of this, but inevitably what's going to happen is it's going to fail and China's going to win, but they're going to, cause a huge disaster in the process. And you're saying, no, China isn't a target. They're interested in other objectives, such as, benefiting Israel, creating, making Israel a world power.
Well,
and,
maybe explain it. Well, I'll clarify. Why don't you explain it to us like you are talking to Trump, like you are one of these guys explaining how this is intended to harm China. Maybe frame it that way. You are giving a briefing to Donald Trump and you are explaining how this attack on Iran.
No, well, what we're going to do is, because China is still dependent on energy imports, they do not have yet energy self-sufficiency. So there's a closing window of opportunity. We have to, I see that Ian's frozen. Hopefully he'll log back in or unfreeze. But yeah, so I'm telling Trump that this window of opportunity is closing quickly. We have to work fast to monopolize global energy resources. And then we have to, create a huge shortage of energy on the planet. And then we have to do our best to not allow China to get any energy. And this will cripple their economy. And we might be able to just start a few proxy wars against China. And just like we're working with Ukraine to bleed Russia, we can work with our proxy forces that are waging war against China, probably in the Philippines, maybe South Korea, maybe Japan, maybe Taiwan. And we can, wage a proxy war against China while, we cause a global energy deficit that we also, do our very best to make sure that China does not be able to access any energy imports. So this is the thinking. Meanwhile, our own country will be safe and secure behind our borders, our oceans, right? 2 oceans are going to protect us. We have a lot of oil in Canada, a lot of oil in Mexico, and a lot of oil in the United States, and natural gas. So our hemisphere, our direct immediate proximity is energy self-sufficient. We can weather this storm a lot better than China can. And so we're going to initiate a global conflagration, and we're going to hope to emerge out of the other side in a much better position relative to China than we are now. Sure, it's going to be a huge net deficit in standards of living and the way things work. I mean, the world is going to collapse, but what is important is that the billionaire oligarchs will still not suffer at all because they're billionaire oligarchs. And at the end of this, the United States, the balance of power will be reordered in the favor of these oligarchs. So I can't tell if you're frozen or if you're just not blinking, Ian. I think you were frozen for. You were frozen for. I can hear you.
Okay, good.
So that's my best effort to explain to Trump why he's doing what he's doing, and I think Trump understands and agrees. But I did want to address the first thing that you said. It was about, Daryl wants me to explain. What did he want me to explain again? He wanted me to explain to him because I had a good explanation. But I don't shoot. I can't find his question. But you put it on. So essentially, he talks about how the United States outsourced their manufacturing to China, right? And this is part and parcel of why. Yeah. So exactly, it's no doubt the Western oligarchy gutted American manufacturing. They sent it to China, and the Western oligarchy made bank, like they made a lot of money. One of the negative externalities of that policy, from the perspective of the ruling oligarchy, was that China became very powerful. China ensured that all the stuff we outsourced to them, that we shared technology with them as well. And then they took that technology and they improved it. And then they developed the domestic capacity to create, advanced technology without the help of the West. And so we didn't expect them to do any of that. But thanks to the Communist Party of China, they were able to exploit the West's willingness to allow China to trade, become part of the World Trade Organization, to be the manufacturer of the world. China exploited that to maximum benefit. And now they are this, peer rival. They're America's peer rival. That's what the think tank literature describes them as. And so since they're this peer rival, they're threatening to displace Western hegemony, and they're threatening to plunge the world into multipolarism. And of course, the Western ruling establishment is resisting that. They do not want multipolarism. They do not want to have their freedom curtailed by, other powers that they don't control. Russia, China. So this is why they're embarking us on the strategy that they are. But we talked about manufacturing going, and here's the thing. So it's ideology, right? Liberal ideology, capitalist ideology says we can't plan things and we can't use the state. So it is impossible for Trump to implement a plan, a cohesive plan where, manufacturing returns to the United States. Like that they can't do that, because guess what? You need a plan for that. You need a state planning the economy to make that happen. And so what do capitalists do? Capitalists just engage in destruction, and they force the kinds of environment that necessitates it's invention. Invention is the necessity is the mother of invention. So by destroying, China as the global manufacturer, by destroying shipping lanes, they are going to force the United States to undergo a transformation, where, because people will need things. People will start dying because they don't have things. And that is going to force a new economy to develop and manufacturing to return, because we will no longer have the access and benefit to a global economy. And so part of this destruction is to force the necessary change that China can do peacefully, that China has done peacefully, because of, the superiority of socialism and the superiority of planning. But all of that is rejected by the capitalists. The capitalists do not want to engage in this ideological slippery slope of using the state to rationally do what they need to do to further their oligarch interests. They're not going to do that. And so they're just going to create destruction and force a change. And they don't care about the outcome. They don't care about the sacrifice that the American people are going to have to endure in the process of this destruction. Not just the American people, but I mean, humanity as a whole. So there's an ideological component to, why they've been incapable of transforming the U.S. economy, and why they've been incapable of, having domestic manufacturing that is not reliant on China. And their plan, this is their plan. They plan to the extent of, we're going to just destroy everything, and then we won't have any choice but to engage, but to create a new economy. And part of this too is they've really painted themselves in a corner with their national debt. And all of this is unsustainable. Like the current global system is unsustainable. The U.S. national debt is unsustainable. So this is why they're flipping over the game board. It's a total global reset. And again, starting tonight, like I've been saying, it's this week for a long time. And then, tonight seems like the night that they're really accelerating this plan forward. But that's my argument. And you can tell I'm excited about it. We do have some commenters, unless you got something to say.
No, let's hit the commenters. So catch up on the comments.
So Ian and Billy Bob, wonderful analysis, realistic. There are scenarios and for the U.S. to win, it's apparent that the unwanted Iran war needs to be gotten rid of. If Iran backs down, then it's a win-win situation for the U.S. However, if it doesn't, then there are, again, two scenarios. Best case scenario from the Western perspective is Iran backs down, Iran concedes, Iran surrenders, Iran submits, right? That's best case scenario. The United States controls Iranian oil without having to destroy all of their, the oil in the region. And then they control it all, and then they can just, turn it off and not allow China to access it. So that's their best. But again, they don't have control of whether that happens or not. Iran has a veto over that question. And so Iran has, said, no, we're going to go ahead and destroy the, energy capacity of the Gulf monarchies if you destroy ours. And so that's what's happening. That's the road we're going down. But then, and now after that, there's two consequences. Either, the U.S. wins or they lose. And I have been, proclaiming that all of this is futile. It is a lose-lose proposition for the West. Inevitably, they are going to have to engage in multipolarism because they are not strong enough to destroy Russia, China, and ultimately China is going to win and force the United States into a situation where they embrace a subordinate role of the multipolar role and not the unipolar role. And that will happen one way or another. It can happen the easy way, but, obviously it's the U.S. deciding, no, it's going to happen the hard way. And so there's no doubt in my mind that we are watching in real time the collapse of Western imperialism. This is what's going on. This is why I named my show Exposing Imperial Decline, because we are watching the empire decline in real time. They're not going to win. But this is the strategy they're pursuing, and they're pursuing it because, number one, they're not going to suffer because of it, because they're billionaires. They themselves are not going to suffer. Number two, it's their best chance. It's their best chance. And so they are going to pursue their best chance, whether or not. And then number three, the system is such that they really can't stop it. It's kind of inexorable. And inexorable is a fun word because it means, impossible to stop. And so it's just like it's a system in motion that it's very difficult for a few powerful people to get together and say they're going to stop this. And number one, there's no will to do that. But even if there was, it would be extremely difficult. There's too many forces propelling it forward. And so anyway, I was going to take that off. Let's see. What's another comment? So again, not everybody agrees with me, and I got to keep that in mind, and I want to address other people's perspectives. So this person says, this is where we depart. Multipolarism is the redivision of imperialist super profits. Chinese and U.S. government are in a partnership in serving the imperialist agenda of world domination. I mean, it's like I just inhabit a different universe, and I would argue that I live in the real world, and this is just not sensible in any way at all. So no, the United States sees China as their pure enemy, and they are going to go to extraordinary lengths to destroy China. I mean, that is what's going on. They are not working together behind the scenes. I just totally reject that analysis.
So this brings us to the threats tonight. Is Trump going to nuke Iran? Now, guys, if you go to the description of this video, whether you're on Facebook or one of our YouTube channels, we stream to several sources. So if you go there, you will see a link to the full article I wrote for this. I also included Billy Bob's long form post on his viewpoint as well. But the big question for tonight is this threat, which everybody interprets as a nuclear threat, because what else could it be? That he's going to, in fact, I will just go ahead and read Trump's Truth Social statement verbatim. And it's so basically he said, he tweeted this, I guess, in the morning. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total, complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. So it's unhinged, right? But I do want to bring up, to understand to make predictions, we have to understand what's already happened. We have to understand the situation we've in now. So on previous shows, right from the beginning of the war, I have made this argument that an air campaign, just conventional air strikes by themselves cannot achieve regime change in Iran. It's not going to achieve. They're not going to achieve air goals. They have to put boots on the ground. There's no way around it. And in our last show that we did last week, I compared to Iran. I was suggesting that Iran, the war with Iran, was going to be like the Dardanelles campaign, which ended with Gallipoli in World War I. That the naval campaign, the attack on Turkey on the Ottoman Empire failed. The British had to put boots on the ground, which was a total disaster. And I was making the argument that maybe that's how things would go, because I don't see an off ramp. I don't see any way Trump can de-escalate it in a way that's not humiliating. There's no way around it. So now it does look like, for all of you, I don't want to rehash it. I mean, we can rehash it if you want, but the ground operation that just ended.
Ian froze up. He's got to go through a VPN there in Crimea, which results in a poor internet connectivity. Hopefully he'll return. So I was listening, and I was wondering where Ian exactly he was going. He talked about a ground invasion. Okay, maybe you were going to reference the C-130s being destroyed. Is that where you were going? Or
yes, where there's the allegation that the whole pilot rescue was. That maybe it happened, but it was part of a larger operation to seize Iran's enriched uranium. And it failed. And that's why they're chalking it up as a successful rescue operation, because they don't want to admit that the larger goal, which was to seize their uranium, failed. And it's also interesting that Hegseth fired, 20 generals in total? It was a lot, right? Including whoever the chief of staff, the army chief of staff. He fired basically everyone. And so a lot of people wonder if that was because they made this proposal, which is interesting because it's very similar to the proposal that got leaked to the New York Times. So they're saying, what if there's an attack, a special forces operation to seize Iran's uranium and to build a temporary, forward air base, refueling point, and actually hold this position for days or weeks while they extract the uranium and take it out of the country. Well, I think there's a very good chance that's exactly what happened, or what they tried to do. So and they're not to say they can't try, and I mean they certainly can try another ground operation if they want to, but it's possible they won't, and Trump is going to escalate further than that. That was their main ground invasion attempt, and
maybe so they built like a whole little mini runway and base camp, a logistics hub of operations, in a very remote part of central Iran, and they were hoping, from there to stage, about 30 miles away was what they maybe thought where the uranium was hidden, and they had special forces and they had all kinds of groups that none of that matches with the idea of they were just trying to rescue a downed pilot. And it looks like their base was discovered, and their base was attacked, and they had to get out of there fast, and they destroyed a lot of their equipment, in their rush to leave. And it was a failure. It was a total failure. And so instead of admitting that, they have this cover story of, it was a rescue and we successfully got it down. So that's the fog of war. All we can do is speculate. We don't know with certainty. But yeah, no, a ground war does seem from every angle to be suicidal and like nobody's going to want to do it, which again gets us back to, well, then if you're not going to do a ground invasion, what are you going to do? And so there's two possible options really. And so I'm not convinced that tonight Trump will use nuclear weapons. I think what Trump is talking about is an escalation, and that escalation involves attacking Iran's energy production capacity that he hasn't really attacked yet. And he hasn't really attacked it yet because Iran has said, if you do that, we will do that to the Gulf region countries, and we will destroy their capacity to produce oil for years to come. And so far, that has been a deterrent. So far, the United States has not made that escalation. And because of that, that's why the barrel of oil is only $116 when I checked earlier this morning, because it would be a lot higher, and it will go a lot higher once the, energy production capacity for West Asia is completely destroyed for years to come. When that happens, we will see $200 a barrel. And I predict at least $150 a barrel by Friday, because I don't think Trump's going to back down. I think he's going to start attacking Iranian oil production, and the Iranians are going to reciprocate by attacking Gulf oil production. And this is going to cause a big spike in oil, and it's going to be at least 150 by Friday is my prediction. Depending on how aggressively Iran is attacked and how aggressively Iran responds. It can go slowly over weeks, it can go quickly over hours, and that's all going to determine how the price of oil is, on the stock market. But so I think that's the escalation Trump's talking about. He's going to go after targets that he hasn't gone after yet, important targets, power production, power plants, and energy infrastructure. And then Iran's going to reciprocate. But I don't think we're going to see nukes just yet. I think nukes are a possibility, but I don't see them happening at the moment. What do you think, Ian?
Well, the main problem is that so guys read the post, go into the description, and read the article. I do agree. It's I don't think they'll jump straight to nukes. I think that's very unlikely. However, the problem with the conventional strike is I think it's very unlikely it's going to work, because we see this. We see a recent example of this in Ukraine. It's been getting pummeled by airstrikes and missile strikes for 4 years. It's actually very difficult to take down a power plant or a factory with just air power. You can hit it, you can punch holes in it, but then what happens? Repairmen come and they fix it, and then it's working again. But
what about Ian? Let me ask you. Can I ask you directly? What about the capacity for Iran to load oil onto tankers and send them off to China? Is that something that's vulnerable, or is that something that the United States can't do anything about? See, I think that's very vulnerable. I think it's easy for the United States to stop that from happening by certain strategic bombing of certain sites that are totally vulnerable. So that's what I'm talking about. Their ability to produce energy and provide it to the world.
They could do it. They could have done it already. They can just stop.
They could have. They haven't. And they haven't because Iran has threatened to retaliate.
Well, my point is you don't even need to bomb anything. They can just interdict the tankers. And they haven't, because that would drive because it's a shared oil market. We're all in the same boat, so to speak. If they interdict oil shipments to China, that will drive up everybody's oil prices. But they haven't done that. They haven't stopped Iran from shipping to China, and they could do that. They don't even need to bomb anything. They can just stop the ships, because Iran can stop the ships in the straits, but the U.S. Navy is outside the strait and can stop ships there. So they could just have zero traffic. If they wanted to, they could have zero traffic out of the strait of Hormuz, but they don't. They don't even need. If China was the goal, they could just do it now. They could have done it already. They could have said no ships to China. They haven't done that. Even Russia, they haven't. They've scaled back the attack on Russian oil. Well, Ukraine hasn't, but USA has, because they want to stabilize the global oil prices. Now, with that said, I am concerned by the people who are close to Trump. It seems like they're condemned. By the way, guys, how's my signal? Are you hearing me clearly?
Oh no, yeah, no, you're good now.
Yeah,
You've
okay.
been freezing occasionally, but
I know,
not for.
I don't mean to freeze. If I freeze up too much, just tell me, because I want you to understand what I'm saying. But Martin, the two people I cited in the article were Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, and Mark Levin, the Zionist Jewish. I'm not even sure what his official position is, but he's one of Trump's favorite people now, as he chased away the Charlie Kirks and the Tucker Carlsons, the more typical white, typical conservative patriot guys. He pushed them away and got all these, greater Israel, these very strange
whack jobs.
Very strange, yes. Nut jobs, yes. The type of people who sit there and say like Trump is the next Jesus Christ, those types of people. It's just like they make even the most hardcore Roarhawks in the Bush administration look sane. It's crazy. But anyways, so Lindsey Graham, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, he compared taking the what's that name of that island? The island.
Arg.
Yeah, he compared it to taking Iwo Jima, and he was drawing comparisons between Iran and Japan. I don't think he's explicit with comparing it to Japan is because we nuked Japan. The USA nuked Japan. So any direct comparison to Japan is suggesting that maybe we should nuke them. That's the problem. And now this Mark Levin statement was even more explicit. He said, well, he made this whole spiel about World War II casualties, and it's concerning because it seems like he's conditioning people to accept nuclear bombs.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I agree with that. And I think, it's possible that they will just have Israel do it for them, right? Like, I mean, they might not want it to happen. They might let Israel do it. And then again, this is how scapegoats work. Either way, if Trump does it or if Israel does it, who doesn't get blamed is the global oligarchy that really wants it to happen and is trying to push it to happen. And so this is how these, the liberal framework keeps you from seeing what's really going on, because the liberal framework only sees things in terms of nation states or, presidents. And that's really not how power works. Power is based on class, and there's a transnational oligarchy that controls the United States and Israel. And so they can use their control over these states to further their class interests. And that's what they're doing. And so, but most people are indoctrinated and totally imbibed in liberalism. And so, they're going to just blame Trump. And then what are they going to do when they blame Trump? Well, they're going to flood to the Democrats. Oh, we need the Democrats because the Democrats are better. Trump is awful. And guess what? That serves the oligarchy just fine, because they own the Democrats every bit as much as they own the Republicans. Or Israel. They get people to blame Israel and say Israel is the problem. Israel is doing all these evil things. But, again, that just keeps people from understanding the reality of this transnational oligarchy being the actual problem. And so we'll see. I mean, I think, they are preparing us. They are conditioning our minds to accept the idea of a nuclear attack, of tactical nuclear weapons. And when they probably roll out and present it to us, they're probably going to present it to us as protecting and defending humanity and keeping humanity from going off an economic cliff. And so since Iran is being intransigent, Iran is driving the planet off of an economic cliff. We have to stop Iran. And that's why God gave us nuclear weapons, to address this kind of threat to humanity posed by Iran. And so this is going to be the justification. This is how it's going to be rolled out. And there's going to be a lot of people begging for Trump and Israel to nuke Iran. And you're going to see talking heads all over the TV, arguing that this is what we need to do. And we already see it, like you said, with Lindsey Graham and that other Mark Levin.
Mark Levin, yes.
So I think it is entirely plausible within the realm of possibility, and it could be a certainty, that it is part of the plan and it's going to happen at a certain time. I doubt tonight it's going to happen. I think they're going to, like I said, initiate some bombing of targets that they haven't hit yet. And this is the huge escalation. They're going to go after targets that they haven't hit yet, and they haven't hit them yet because Iran has told them, well, if you do that, we're going to do this. And we weren't prepared to have Iran, respond. But now we've calculated, okay, well, they're still not giving up. So we're going to escalate and we're going to let them. So this is just rolling out. And I argue it's rolling out, all according to plan, as explained 2 years ago.
You think it's according to plan?
And here's the plan. The plan is we will try our best to just win outright and get Iran to surrender and regime change them. But if they don't, we're prepared to go to X, Y, and Z if necessary. And that X, Y, and Z if necessary is the total destruction of West Asian oil production. And that, I think, is what Trump is telling us yesterday in his press conference, this morning with the tweet. He's prepared to destroy all of West Asian oil production. And again, I read you, Iran is saying explicitly, this is how we will respond. I mean, that's what Iran said. I have it right here. Iran has announced that it will destroy the entire energy infrastructure of Israel and all other countries that host U.S. bases in the region. From now on, certain considerations regarding good neighborliness and self-restraint have ended. We will deal with the infrastructure of the United States and its partners in the Persian Gulf in such a way that they will be deprived of the region's oil and gas for years. And this, again, is going to initiate the beginning of the global economic collapse. That, again, is what the planners have assessed will be necessary to weaken and contain China. A global economic collapse where a China dependent on energy imports is no longer going to have access to them. So, and we're going to see that roll out soon. Again, that's speculation because I don't have evidence to point to that happening. I see everything happening building up to the ability for the U.S. to do that. And so I just think it's obvious. And I think that I'll be able to come on here and say, I told you so very soon when the U.S. does, start focusing on China, when they're done, with what they're doing in Iran, when they have sufficiently degraded, action, we will see an obvious pivot to China. And that's when, it's just what's going to happen. I understand we're at the very beginning of this. They're just putting the pieces in place to do this, but that's what they're doing. So I'm saying they're putting the pieces in place, and then we will very soon see a direct targeting of China. And we haven't seen that yet. And that's why people aren't seeing what I'm seeing, right? Because it's not overt. It's not, we're just seeing the preliminary stages that are working up to that. But that'll happen very, very soon. And it could happen this week too, because like you were saying, they could just start interdicting these tankers that are taking Iranian oil to China. Like that could happen today. That could happen tomorrow. The U.S. military could easily stop. Now, it's an interesting fact that today, right now, China is getting more oil from Iran than they were getting before this conflict started. I think that's a fact, and I believe it to be a fact. And I think that very soon the U.S. will address that fact, and they will put a stop to that. And that could be part of that could be part of the escalation that is supposed to happen at 8 p.m. East Coast time, per Trump's announcement. Is it a lot for you to take in, Ian? It shouldn't be, because I hit this, I hammer these points every show in a very repetitive way.
It's just like, I don't see China doing anything, because I'll tell you in 2023, right? I've never seen China directly portray itself as an ally of Russia. So yes, Xi will say whatever to Putin in these meetings he has, but I've never seen them position. I've never seen them unequivocally say they're an ally of Russia. But in 2023, when I went to the annual Army Forum, Iran did directly and openly position themselves as an ally of Russia, and they openly sent military assistance to Russia. They sent those drone designs. And by the way, China does not do this. China refuses to do this. They will not share the designs of their products with Russia. They want to keep their manufacturing internal. But China shares these designs with Russia. So at first they sent a bunch of stockpiles of drones to Russia to fill this drone gap, because they're using drones faster than anyone. Right. But after that, they built their own factory floors. And after, I think, like the first, however long it was, 6 months or a year or whatever it was, they were producing their own drones, and they actually improved those drones. And now they're actually sending them back to Iran because they made improvements. They made Russia improvements. And so now that Iran is in a war, they're doing that. So I see Iran sticking their neck out. They did stick their neck out because, there was this big global effort to crush Russia, and Iran was one of the few. They actually publicly stuck their necks out and took Russia's side in that. And now you see Russia helping Iran. But every show you come on and you say, well, it's actually about China. It's like, well, what is China doing? I mean, how does removing air defenses from South Korea and Taiwan hurt China? I mean, if I didn't know better, I would say containing China is less important than Greater Israel, because they're literally, and I think that it's actually a true statement that these systems cannot be replaced. Those rare earth minerals they need to build these radars, to build these THAAD missiles, it's just, they're so rare. These systems, whatever systems are lost in Iran, will not be able to be replaced. So they stripped the defenses from East Asia. East Asia is just undefended, I think. And it's going to be at least 5 to 10 years before they can even think about sending replacements. So how does that hurt China to strip these air defenses from around China and send them to be destroyed in a war with Iran? I just don't see how China is related at all to what's happening. Or as even this comment here, what does Lebanon? Because right now they told the Christians in southern Lebanon, do not hide Muslims in your attic, because Shia Muslims in your attic, because we're sending, the Nazi stormtroopers are going door to door looking for these Shia Muslims. People are hiding them in the attics and the basements. So, it's like Nazi Germany, literally. What is Lebanon? What do these religious sects in southern Lebanon that Israel is ethnically cleansing? What does that have to do with the transnational oligarchy? How does that help them?
Yeah,
it helps Israel. It helps Israel. If you're an ethnic supremacist in Israel, it makes sense why they would want to do that. But why, if you're a global capitalist, why would you care? Why does that matter?
So in my framework, the transnational oligarchy is the one who has implemented and benefits from a Western empire. And the Western empire controls certain power structures, certain governments. And then in Lebanon, of course, the Christians in Lebanon, by and large, have always sided with Israel. And you remember, no, you don't know that. So the The Lebanon massacre, Shabra and Shatila. I'm butchering those names, but those were two refugee camps that were bombed by Lebanese Christians. So Lebanese Christian militias have always been allied with Israel and used by the West to destroy, resistance to the state of Israel. And again, the state of Israel is just an appendage of Western imperialism. And so, it's just obvious that, the Western Empire has vassals that it controls, and then it has resistance that it attacks with those vassals. And so in Lebanon, it's a battleground. It's a front of this war. And Israel, of course, is the major appendage of Western imperialism in the Middle East. And Lebanon is a front of that war between Western Empire and the resistance to Western Empire, which is Hezbollah, Iran, the Palestinian resistance. So, it's everything is interconnected. It's a global. Okay.
But they're not, though. They literally. All of those parties he listed were completely open to negotiating with the USA, Iran in particular.
Well, they're open to negotiating, but they're not open to surrender. That's the difference.
There is no Israel.
The West is demanding surrender and capitulation.
I don't know. It's kind of incredible that, so what reason does Israel have to be the appendage and not Iran? If you were a global capitalist, why don't you say, hey, you know what? Or even Saddam, why did they spend $6 trillion and suffer tens of thousands of casualties to topple Saddam, instead of saying, you know what, Saddam's going to be our appendage, like he was in the 80s. What did Saddam do to the global capitalist class that made him an enemy? What did Saddam do?
I'm not in your mind, and it's hard for me to address the issues that are in your mind that are not helping you see things. But to me, your question is just so obvious, right? Like Iran was an appendage of the Western Empire until a revolution overthrew the Shah, right? So when that happened, Iran claimed their sovereignty and claimed their independence. And that's why the United States have been trying to destroy them ever since. Israel has always been a Western vassal. And it was, in the 67 war when they really started to attach themselves, or the United States really, acquired them as a vassal. Before that, it was more, there wasn't that tight, close relationship between the United States and Israel. But no, the whole point of, dividing, Sykes-Picot, right, after World War I was to allow the West to extract and exploit the resources of that region without resistance. That's the approach that the Western oligarchy has taken towards that region. And Israel has facilitated that. Our Gulf monarchies facilitate that. And again, there's vassals that we own and control, and then there's resistance to our efforts. And so it's a battleground. And I don't consider myself a dumb person, but I have never heard of an empire that makes it illegal to criticize their vassals. Like for example, I don't remember Rome having a law that says if you say bad things about the Gauls, you are sent to prison as an anti-Gaulite. It's just strange. Well,
when you have this huge lobby that that very aggressively suppresses.
There's a huge overlap in the interests. The imperialists have no problem with allowing Israeli nationalists to have power and to dominate discourse, just like they have no problem allowing Zelensky to have power and dominate discourse. They empower Ukrainian nationalism and they empower Israeli nationalism because these are vassals that they own and control. And so they have no problem allowing this ideology of Israeli nationalism or Ukrainian nationalism to proliferate. Like, that isn't against their interests. It overlaps with their interests. So I don't, you're speaking to a real thing. There is outsized influence of an Israel lobby. There's no doubt about that, but that doesn't contradict anything I'm saying. It doesn't contradict anything. It coincides perfectly with my framework. And so I'm just not sure, in your mind, how you see a contradiction, because I mean, we agree on what you're pointing out, but we just disagree on what the implications of what you're pointing out are. And I'm saying those implications are definitely not at all contradictory to what I'm saying. But no, it's a good conversation, and we should have more of it. And I should have other people to disagree with me and to challenge me, because I think that can be useful. And I think that kind of dialogue and discussion can be useful. And I know Daryl would like to. The problem is he's only available on weekends, and I'm often not available on weekends, which is one problem. I haven't had Daryl on sooner. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, Ian, I think the problem is liberalism, and I think that there's just like a liberal framework that has just been instilled and indoctrinated in people, and they're not able to think outside of certain frameworks, and I think that what helps you to do that is over time, you can de-indoctrinate. This sounds so fucking pretentious. It sounds so fucking conceited and pretentious. And I apologize for that. But I mean, that's just what I really think. And unless you understand class and and how class, not just how it's operating now and how it's influencing events now, but how it has influenced events in the past. And reading Lenin, reading Stalin, reading Mao helps you to understand how the global class system works, and how liberalism is designed to hide this reality. But everybody is immersed in liberalism. Everybody embraces liberalism, and that's their only framework with which. So it's difficult to train people and get them to understand a different framework that really allows them to make sense of everything in a much better way, history and then the contemporary reality. And so it is difficult to people who don't really understand that and haven't, don't have that internalized awareness. They're just trying to figure things out, but they're doing it from a framework that is designed to keep you from really understanding. And I think, that framework determines your conclusions. And so that framework inevitably will go with Trump must have sold out to the Israel lobby, and he's got this country to do things against this country's interests for another country. And so that's not exactly it. I mean, I can see how one could see that. But if you understand the concept of a transnational oligarchy that has loyalty to itself and is not and uses nation states to further their class interests, like that's what's going on. And that's what Mao talked about. That's what Stalin talked about. That's what Lenin talked about. And so that is what is going on now. And that is why what we're seeing, I argue, is the manifestation of the class struggle in the 21st century. The struggle against Western imperialism is how the class struggle plays out. And so I see a continuity from, World War I, World War II. It's the same people that overthrew the feudal system and became the ruling class in the West. It's those same people that continue today. And they were the ones, again, that empowered Hitler, unleashed him against the Soviet Union, began the Cold War, had the success of the fall of the Soviet Union, had this policy towards China of, engagement, and now it's backfired. This policy against China has backfired against them, and they see that they've created a monster that threatens to displace their hegemony. And so now they're going to plunge the planet into a global catastrophe to deal with this peer rival they have created, and they're unhappy. They see the error of their ways, and they're doing this because of China. They're plunging us all into World War III, into a global economic catastrophe tonight. Probably, they're initiating it tonight because of China and because of the power that China represents to displace them. 1.4 billion people, the world's manufacturer, the number one trading partner of over 120 countries. China is an existential threat to the global hegemony of the Western oligarch class that has, especially since they defeated the Soviet Union, has just reigned supreme. And so they have embarked upon this strategy that they're pursuing right now under Trump to rectify that situation. But that strategy involves destroying the planet, and hoping to come out the other side in a better position than they currently are with relation to China. Like, that's it. And so they realize that destruction has to take place. You're not going to defeat China, the number one trade partner of over almost all the world's countries, the global manufacturer. You're not going to defeat them and not have a global economic collapse. They've resigned themselves to that fact. So anyway, I don't want to deal with the comments because they're stupid. And it looks like Ian is frozen.
I can hear you.
Okay. But I just saw this comment and it just pissed me off. It's like, oh, I want to do a face palm and so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else to say except to, scream at the top of my lungs, what is going on and how it's going to be escalating, playing out right before our eyes in a huge way, tonight probably. And to, relate what happens to the bigger picture. And I think, that's what, animates me and motivates me to have a platform and to use that platform, to share what I just think is super obvious and important. And I will tout my book since we're on the subject. I'm pretty proud of the work that I accomplished with this 99-cent Amazon ebook, and it's just contrasts, socialist ideology with liberal ideology, and I think that explains everything. And I think it has been written in such a way that it, even liberals can get it. Even liberals who have totally wrong ideas about what liberalism is, about what socialism is. That's the whole point of that book, is to explain things. And I think I just recommend it. It's almost 300 pages. I've linked to it on a number of my posts, and 99 cents. And you can instant message me on Facebook, and I can send you my final draft. It's a Word document. I can send you my final draft for free. I've sent it to a bunch of people. But I don't see a lot of analysts saying this. I'm sorry, Ian, I'm just rambling because you're going in and out of being frozen. And I apologize for rambling. But I don't see a lot of people saying what I'm saying. And I think what I'm saying is true and needs to be said. And there's a lot of good analysts. I love Brian Beletic, and he says a lot of important things, but he doesn't like have the clarity that I do. And maybe the clarity that I do is boorish and people don't want to hear it. It's possible. But I think I bring in a certain clarity. Brian's great. Danny Haifong is great. The guy he used to be with Max Blumenthal and they parted ways. Ben Norton's great. He says a lot of similar things. But, nobody really gets into the realm of ideology and how, one ideology is keeping people from understanding the reality of what's going on, and it allows people to have a wrong idea of everything that's going on and a wrong understanding of, the powers at play. And, with liberalism, again, you just have to look in terms of, nation states, and you're gonna fundamentally misunderstand what's going on if you think in terms of nation states. So you got to reject liberalism, you got to embrace socialism, understand the class dynamic, the class struggle, understand that it's a class of oligarchs that are loyal to themselves, pursuing their class interests without any regard for national interests, without any regard for the people that are the primary populations in all the nation states. They don't care about those people. They're pursuing their class interests. And this is what explains everything. So, Ian, I hope I'm probably done ranting for the day. I hope you are not completely gone and you can help me wrap up the show. I will do that, Ramisha, but just give me a reminder. I'm going to take a little break after the show. Give me a reminder. Send me an IM on Facebook and I can send you. There's a link to the Amazon. 99 cents. Ebook, 99 cents. Thank you, Ian. But yeah, if you don't have 99 cents, I am happy to give it to you for free. I am not trying to make money. I'm trying to help people be thoughtful and understanding about the situation. And because that's what the oligarchs don't want. They don't want people aware. They don't want people understanding and thoughtful. and onto what they are up to, because we wouldn't stand for it. We would not stand for it. And Ian, you're in and out, so hopefully you can help me end the show. But if not, I can end it. But it looks like you're back.
Yeah, no, sorry, it's just my connection fell apart. So it's probably a good. No, I mean, plugging your book, guys. I posted the link, like Billy Bob mentioned. I think it's a good ending note, in part also because my connection's falling apart. I don't know why, it just is. But it was a good show. It was a good discussion. I will even share yes. Share screen. Yes. It's not going to let me. Okay, my connection's too poor.
Okay.
But anyways,
no problem. Yeah, no, I want to thank, the viewers, the commenters, and I want to say, hey, let's return on Friday. I have made a prediction, $150 a barrel. I think that's a totally reasonable prediction, depending on the extent to which the United States destroys Iranian oil production and the extent to which Iran reciprocates and destroys Gulf energy production. If it goes off like Trump is talking, I am predicting $150 barrel by Friday. And I think that's reasonable. And so hey, let's return. We will test my prediction, and I can say I was wrong, but I don't think I will. So that's a good note to end on, I think. I mean, because and yeah, Ian. So and I think you and I can do a show this coming Friday. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope we get a lot of live viewers and a lot of commenters. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you then. Bye-bye.